media houses, quick, you don't take things for granted. You never take anything for granted with the media houses. A report, build,
Soweto TV.
Soweto SABC.
Noma Bebeza.
Report, build, nothing. Says registration this year. No, Africa's ones.
Radio Sando Grenze.
Radio Sando Grenze. Radio Sando Grenze. No, you are not giving the news to the Radio Sando Grenze. They must come themselves. Eh?
Yes.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and welcome. Thank you for making the time to attend this press briefing. My name is Kusela Sangoni. I'm the National Communications Manager of the ANC. You will be addressed today by the Secretary General just on giving an update on our preparations towards the 54th National Conference. We had initially thought that we would do this as a roundtable discussion to allow you sufficient time to engage with the SG. However, I think knowing the interest that all of you will have in this matter, we have then opened it in the manner that we have. However, we'll continue to try and keep that spirit. So the SG will come and address. He will continue, will take over. You will pose a question to him. He will respond. He will then take the next question after that. So we're trying to get it as interactive as possible. Without wasting any time, Nopala Jigala.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Kusera. Thank you very much to the members of the media who have come here. You see, I'm always reluctant to use the term fourth estate. I don't know whose estate it is. Now, I don't use things until I understand them better. The briefing is about our state of readiness. And many people sometimes, when you talk of state of readiness, prefer getting it from the social media. I want to give it to you. Last time I gave you the state of BGMs, then the following day I read a headline that says, KZN disputes the numbers of the SG. What was not explained is that figures of the SG is a function of reporting. If you don't report, you're not disputing, you're just correcting your failure to report. Up to yesterday, Eastern Cape was left with 71 BGMs. Free State was left with 29. Gauteng was left with 41. KZN was left with 122. Mpumalanga was left with 3. Limpopo was left with 69. Northern Cape was complete. Northwest was left with 40. The Western Cape was left with 48. That is where we were yesterday. That took us to 90.04% of the branches that qualified to go to conference. So we're above 90%. In the last briefing, I said, when you asked me about 70% threshold, I said 70% is threshold, therefore it's a minimum. our intention is to get 100% of our branches to that conference so that delegates from the branches participate and shape the future of the ANC. In that regard, we said yesterday, should we close BGM? We said no, let's allow a week for a mop-up. We call it a mop-up. Bolimgami we will call extension. We're over 90. If we wanted, we would just close because we're qualified for the conference. We exceeded the threshold by 20%. We still want that remaining part of the 10% to get further branches to the conference of the ANC so that everybody participates in the conference of the ANC. That's where we are. And therefore, we're quite ready for the conference. Number two, logistically, we are ready. We'll be NASREC. We have done something new this year. That says, sometimes we have conferences, they get bombarded by gas of one kind or another. We'll keep that number to the minimum so that the ANC does discuss its problems, its policies, elect its leadership comprehensively under conditions that are actually very welcoming to them. And they must be open. It's because we want us to be very, very robust and candid in the conference. So that is our situation. So any prediction of a conference of the ANC not sitting, I'm sure everybody is now understand that there is no way that will not sit. Even if we can close today and say no further BGMs, that conference is sitting 16th to the 20th of December. Now, the teams of the NEC are in the provinces dealing with those who are having appeals and objections. And we say to them, once you listen and you make a determination that branch X must rerun, take that decision on the spot and direct that branch on the spot to go and rerun its BGM. That is working well for us because we're not going to have hangover. What are we going to do with disputes? We're dealing with the disputes as the BGMs are run. So that's how far we've gone. For example, if you take the Northern Cape is clean now, disputes have been done and everything has been done. They have held their PGC and nominated, first PGC. The Youth League has done its nomination in the Women's League. The Veterans League is finalizing its nominations. We are putting pressure on many of the provinces that, listen, this weekend, hold your PGCs. Let me tell you why do we put pressure on PGCs. Because we put boxes in the provinces and say, what comes out of the BGM must go to a box. Only the Electoral Commission will open that box. Nobody must tamper with the outcomes of the BGMs. We want PGCs to happen quicker than later. So, because only then can verification be done because registers of BGMs are in the box with the nominations. So we don't want to open those boxes because we want registers. We want PGCs to happen, take the registers, verify the branches. That is what is happening. We'll have few PGCs this weekend. I know the Western Cape is sitting. The Eastern Cape is talking about sitting Sunday and Monday, and we're going around them to say, the sooner you hold your PGCs, the better it is for all of us. So that is how far we are in terms of the preparations. We are ready for the conference. We are there, and I want all of you to sing now. We're ready for Kwete Mantash. Now, I've listened to people singing this ready about everybody else except me, but fine, it's fine with me. as long as the conference is on schedule and we're going to have it. To me, once we have that, we are on schedule. Now, there was another dynamic that emerged when people dealt with the one delegate per branch with 100 and additional branch for every 250. It bloated few of the provinces. We said no, there is a rule 10.1.1.1 which allocates delegates to branches proportionately. But there is another balancing clause of the Constitution, 10.1.1.2, which talks to the allocation of delegates proportionately to the membership of the province. Those two make the allocation we did originally to be on spot, and actually where there's deviation is 0.1% deviation. Because if we just open it to 1 and 2.5, it can blow the delegation to conference with a maximum number, which is the universal number of conference. It will be allocated 1, an additional 1 for 250, but limited by the proportion of the provinces. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Limpopo entitled in terms of its membership to 14% of delegation, Gauteng 11, Mpumalanga 16, Eastern Cape 14, Northern Cape 4, Western Cape 4, and Northwest 11, Free State 9, and KZN 18. So that percentage in terms of proportionate membership will not allow people to bloat their delegation to 21 if they are 18% of the membership. Nor will it allow anybody who's 14% to bloat its membership to 19 when it is 14 of the membership. So there are two provisions here, 10.111 and 10.112. Those two clauses regulate the allocation of the delegation to provinces. I'm sure on that one I'm through. I'm through with that one. On the question of Zimbabwe, my president has resigned. He calls me Guedema. He has resigned. We've taken an approach that is not as emotional as many others. ZANU-PF is our sister party. And ours is not to celebrate this or that. We have taken a view that says we must continue respecting Mugabe for the role he played as a freedom fighter. We must continue supporting him for advocating the Africa's Development Program. We must celebrate him as a Pan-Africanist and the role he played over the last decades. We must also commend the restraint exercised by the people of Zimbabwe in the midst of extremely turbulent and fluid political situation. Our view is that the fact that there was no obvious loss of life, damage to property, there was peaceful protests, to us is quite reassuring. We are hoping that our community in Zimbabwe will rebuild Zimbabwe to its former self. A prosperous country, a beautiful neighbor to us. That is the position we've taken, because sometimes it's easy to celebrate, say now there's a new. And I always become very cautious when everybody celebrates. You must know there's something wrong, you know. I have a principle in life is that when you work, there must be a big chunk of people who love you, and there must be a smaller group of people who are irritated and angry with you, then you are doing the right thing. When everybody celebrates, something is not right. When everybody is sad, something is not right. And I'm hoping that our comrades in Zimbabwe are going to rebuild Zimbabwe. It's our neighbor. When there's a crisis there, we feel it. And hopefully, the intellectual capacity of Zimbabwe, that is all over, including here, will start moving back to Zimbabwe and be part of rebuilding that country. We want to send our condolences to the family of Muchubela Sikwe. Apa ke simbiza uTatu Uwesi. Tatu Uwesi was the secretary of the Veterans League until the last conference that was held. He was Deputy Secretary General of the Veterans League. She has passed on, she's buried on Saturday in Bloemfontein. We're sending our condolences. We love him, we love his contribution. He's part of the Lituli detachment, highly trained, a nuclear physicist who is back here and at advanced age. Those are the few issues we want to talk to. In the main, want to brief you about progress that we're making so that you can ask us directly. Is News 24 here? Yes. Where is it? Why do you, News 24? I'm looking at News 24 so that give Melanie the numbers. And if she wants to do a proper analysis, she must also ask us. Just help her with that so that her analysis is informed of real work done.
So ask you, she'll come to conference and ask you this.
She can come and talk to me before conference. I never refuse to give News 24 any interview.
The lucky people. Thank you very much, SG. I think you should remain standing, SG.
Yes.
We are going to just take the first question, and as indicated, we will open, I'm sure, until 3 o'clock. So we have an interactive discussion. Clement, you'll pose your question to the SG. He will take the next round.
Mamelan, you're going to ask your question. I will answer it. If you have a follow-up question, I will give you the opportunity to follow it through. Okay? Okay. So it will limit us to say first question, second question, third question, fourth question. You will ask your question, we answer it. You want to follow it through, we'll allow you to follow it through. We'll do that to everybody.
Okay, so
it's your advice, eh? We're following your advice.
Is this each question, or should I just ask all four?
All four.
All four, okay.
Why do you ask 4 questions? What will other journalists ask?
Clement Mayetela, SG from Eyewitness News. My first question is, what's the deadline for the PGCs? Is there a deadline that is set? I want to find out about the Stalwarts Consultative Conference. I know the ANC has disassociated itself from that. They are hoping that those declarations can be used at conference. Is that a possibility? My last question is on Zim. As the ANC, what do you make of the process that has led to Mugabe's resignation? And I'm talking about the military confining him to his home, taking control of some national key points and arresting some ministers. Is the ANC, what's your position on that process? And are you willing to work with the new leaders that are coming into power? Thank you.
Yes, the PGCs, there will be no PGC beyond next weekend. Is it working?
Yes,
yeah, the last PGCs will be next weekend. Let me tell you why is that the case. We wanted them earlier. The Free State is holding a conference next weekend. It will be foolhardy of us to expect to have a PGC this week and have a conference next week. So the work of the PGC will happen in the conference in the Free State. And we're putting pressure on everyone else to have their PGCs much earlier. Therefore, that outer post of the Free State becomes the deadline for PGCs. The National Consultative Conference of the ANC, of the veterans and stalwarts. Veterans and stalwarts work, and they met. They're not a structure of the ANC. They had declarations. They are members of the ANC. They can influence discussions in the ANC using those declarations. But there's no specific standing that there are resolution of the policy conference, for example, then the declaration of the NCC. But members of the ANC will use those declarations to influence the discussions in the ANC. That's why it is open. Processes in Zimbabwe. We had a discussion about those processes and discussed and said, how do you describe those? My own view, once a government is taken over by soldiers, I call it a military coup. Okay, you can use all the nice language, put it nice. It's a military coup. How it is managed, it was managed quite professionally, no death, no shootings, no running over buildings. And to me, I think we should commend comrades in Zimbabwe for that. The new leadership that comes there, I don't know how new will that new. You know, I listened to one commentator saying we need a younger leadership. Comrade Mnangagwa is a young leadership, and I thought he's 75 and young. I said, yes, 75 is young compared to 93, but it's not so young. Therefore, new is not so new. ZANU-PF is ZANU-PF. It's a party of liberation in Zimbabwe. It is there. We'll continue working with them. We've been working with them all the time. What we're not going to do is to tell them who to hold what position, who should do what. We can't do that because we wouldn't accept that from them to us.
Just one follow-up.
Okay, one follow-up.
So we do.
Every time you touch it, it makes a huge noise.
You talked about the process that there was no bloodshed. Because of that, does that then legitimize? Because you say if the military has taken over, you can use terms, but it is a military coup. Does it legitimize that because there was no bloodshed?
I don't know legitimacy. It's a very big word for my understanding.
Does it make it okay?
I don't know, okay. I don't know whether I should be a judge on the matter. I don't know whether I should be a judge on the matter. All we're saying is that there was a overthrow of government engineered by soldiers, but it was not like as you normally see in military coups where there's shootouts and destruction and bloodshed. It was managed professionally. There's a transition now in Zimbabwe. Let's welcome that and hope that it will give them the results. And I don't think what we should do is to be judges in the situation. This is this and that. I don't think we should. That's it.
SG, thank you so much. Tiki from News 24. Just two very quick questions. The first one is on Zimbabwe. Did the ANC have some sort of knowledge that there were plans afoot to get rid of Mugabe? Just last week you didn't want to comment on anything to do with Zimbabwe. I just wanted to know what the ANC knew beforehand. Secondly, I just want to try and understand what's happening in the Free State, because there's a PGC that's outstanding from my understanding. There is a provincial conference that must go ahead. And then I forgot what the percentage was for the BGMs. Will they do all those things in just one sitting? The PGC and the election of the PC? Thank you.
Okay. The reason that we didn't want to comment on Zimbabwe is because we didn't know what was happening. Okay. So anybody who throws around the story that maybe people came and whispered to us that we're going to remove Mugabe and so forth, there's nothing close to truth like that. We didn't know it happened in Zimbabwe. We're all taken aback. We've been watching the developments, the tensions. Actually, we've been watching it from the time Comrade Joyce Mujuru was kicked out of ZANU-PF, Didimas Mutasa and all of them. There's a series of incidents that were happening in ZANU-PF that were worrying us. But we had no control over that because it's a sister party. And when Comrade Emerson was removed, we were actually taken aback like everybody else. So I don't know if we would have knowledge whether it would happen after removal of Emerson or what. But I can tell you that there was no discussion and corroboration between the ANC and a section of ZANU-PF about removal of Mugabe. If they ask me, I would be worried because nobody will call me Kwedema in Zimbabwe now. The second one, what is happening in the Free State? I want you to listen to it because I will repeat exactly what I said. I said, the Free State is a conference that goes over 3 days next week. And one of the issues it will do will be the work that would have been done in the PGC. The reason that a PGC in the Northern Cape took a day or almost half a day, because by 5 they were through with everything, is because all the PGCs do is to pull together nomination of the branches, consolidate them, and say, so many branches nominate X for president, so for deputy, so many. And that will be done in the conference. We said it will be waste of resources and energy to separate the two activities. Narikaneng. Oh, no, wait. Ra Ikaneng.
I just need your personal view on this meeting.
No, don't ask me personal views when I represent the ANC. Okay.
You refer to ZANU-PF as a sister party, and you are part of the Forum of Former Liberation Movement. And some of the critics of the Former Liberation Movement are saying that forum has failed, basically, in terms of making sure that we don't see this exit of what you refer as a liberation deal. Many people still view Mugabe as to say, but to see what kind of advice or what kind of discussions are going in that forum, in view of the fact that most of the former liberation movements are fast losing popularity within the African continent. That's what I mean. So it goes back to my earlier question to say that what are you discussing in that forum when you are able to foresee problems which could lead to undignified exit of what people term as popular leaders? And on the issue of the South Coast in Durban, there have been complaints that they've been not being given any kind of cooperation from the provincial leadership about them convening their PGMs and their PGCs. Are you able to tell us as to what that kind of safeguards in terms of making sure of those dissolved kind of regions are also being given that opportunity to exercise their rights of state PGMs?
I don't know if you read the document that came out of the former liberation movement analysis threats to the revolution. I don't know if you remember that document. If you don't, I'll give you a copy. You'll have to ask for it, though. I won't volunteer it. You'll have to ask for it. In that document, which we talked about to all of you, one of the issues I was talking about this morning, there was a point that talked to accidental succession. I don't know if you remember that. I've used that term repeatedly, even in the ANC, and said accidental succession is a threat. And I said the Secretary for Administration for ZANU-PF wanted to understand what this term is. And I told him, you will never understand that term until you experience it. I'm sure where he is now, he understands exactly what is it that is called accidental succession. It's when succession is not managed properly and smooth, and it happens by accident. And it came out of that discussion. That gives you just a taste of what we discuss in those forums, okay? And we also, when you could see that document, we gave you them, and we used it a lot in the ANC in terms of our analysis. We discuss even the question of regime change as a concept, because regime change happens in many, many ways, to get my point. I get worried when the ex-colonizers get so excited when there are changes in the continent. I get worried because for whose interests are they happy? Declaration by an ambassador of a Western country to say, now we'll help Zimbabwe. Help Zimbabwe doing what? Where was this help all the time? Because that reflects elements of regime change and excitement of our colonizers when there are changes in our countries. And when there's a popular protest, sometimes you think that it is spontaneous when it is organized. So we discuss all those issues. That is what we discuss in those. So there's nothing that we don't talk about. That's why I give you specific one of the example of accidental succession. On the South Coast, I don't know what the South Coast says to you. We gave them letters, or everybody, that regions must actually oversee PGMs. If you have a letter that gives you that authority, you don't exercise, you say, I'm bullied. You at the same time say, I'm allowing myself to be bullied, despite the authority given to me. But progress is being made in terms of PGMs everywhere, including Lower South Coast. Okay, Wanele Ikaning, okay. Kaume, andeke niphathe. Andeke niphathe ngoxolo. Andeke niphathe ngoxolo. Xoli. Wait. Xoli Mngambi.
SG, would you characterize what has happened in Zimbabwe? I listen with interest what you say. Would you characterize what's happened there now as part of the regime change agenda? And second to that, what is your view of the regional body, SABC? Regional body SABC? Does it satisfy you that President Jacob Zuma, obviously with the developments last night, deciding that he's no longer going there? Do you think that SADC should be leading the reconstruction process of Zimbabwe? If so, what would be your assessment of what they've done so far in relation to what's happening? Just as a last question, coming back home now to the ANC issues, in your understanding, what percentage would you put KZN at? I understand you saying is 122 BGMs to grow. And what percentage are they sitting? Last week you said to us they were at 40%.
You can count it. The number of branches in KZN are 806. 806. 122 of that is outstanding. You can do your calculation. The isiqoli regime change, that's why I wouldn't say it's regime change, I would say elements of that would begin to show. Because when we watched Arab Spring, We didn't characterize it as a regime change. I don't know if you remember that. We characterized it as popular protests until very further down the road did those characteristics show. Muammar Gaddafi killed in a way, in a particular way, and it became the symbol of the system that must be destroyed. From then up to today, there's no country in Libya. There's chaos. Serious effort are put into try to pull it together. There's chaos. It's too early to characterize the situation in Zimbabwe. I'm a sociologist. What is happening there is too early to predict for a sociologist. Political scientists can do the analysis now. A sociologist will write books further down the line, because sociologists normally look into the events and allow them to unfold and look at the consequences, then characterize. Now, I'm saying in Zimbabwe, you can easily call it a coup. But if you look into the event that led to the incident, the removal of the tension in ZANU-PF itself, you understand that if you just say it's a military coup, you are being simplistic. Okay, so characterizing the situation in Zimbabwe requires us to be to err on the side of caution than being to the extreme and want to characterize immediately. That would be my advice. But for you, you can do it because you can change it next, you can change it that time. For us, it takes time because we need to be very careful in what we say, because we'll still have to interact with ZANU-PF and try to understand in details the underlying factors. SADC must play its role. SADC must play its role. SADC, in playing its role, must engage structures in Zimbabwe, and they must work together. If structures in Zimbabwe say, don't rush here until we're sorted out, we've put together what will be a structure to engage SADC itself, I don't see anything strange when SADC say we're delaying our visit to Zimbabwe. Particularly when Zimbabwe is still coming out of a situation, is trying to pull things together, you may go to Zimbabwe and find nobody to talk to. What would that happen? And therefore, whether they should lead the reconstruction, they must support the reconstruction. Reconstruction in Zimbabwe will be done by the people of Zimbabwe. They must support reconstruction in Zimbabwe. They must not anoint themselves as leaders, because Zimbabwe must rebuild itself. Yes, Todd.
Quick follow-up, Steve, and I'll be done. I would like to draw parallels between what is happening here at home, inside our governing party, and what has happened in Zimbabwe. If I could encapsulate it in how one analyst has summed it up, is that this coup, the military coup that you're talking about, was mounted because there was a silent coup that was taking place inside ZANU-PF, talking about people being appointed to positions in government that are closely aligned to President Robert Mugabe. You see family members being given positions there. And let's come home. Today we have confirmation, yet again, on issues of state capture, that President Jacob Zuma actually handled the ESCOM matter by himself, and Zola Toti was at the helm. The Guptas telling ministers or telling board members that they are not helping them. They must not forget who put them there in the first place. Are there lessons to draw there for the ANC?
There are lessons for the ANC to draw, there are lessons for Zimbabwe to draw from us. Let me tell you, the fact that you can quote a hearing in Parliament here, you're quoting Zola not because you had a secret meeting with him. You're quoting him because he is in an inquiry in Parliament. You wouldn't find that inquiry in Zimbabwe. And once you have an inquiry, when you have an institutional approach to problems, you are saving yourself from being emotional in dealing with problems that are serious, so that you take scientific decisions, and when you take a decision and action, it is informed by a scientific investigation that has happened. So I'm comfortable with the fact that there is an inquiry in Parliament, people are giving evidence, and we'll see where does that end in terms of managing the information that is there. I know you listen to Zolasos and you believe that there should be a silent coup here now immediately. No. Let's allow that investigation to continue. Number two, you must appreciate that the ANC is going to a conference. And in conferences of the ANC, we elect, okay, we don't appoint, presidents of the ANC are heads of states for only 2 terms and not more. That itself limits the damage that could be done if there is recklessness. And we should actually build on what we have and tighten it and strengthen it. That's my lesson. And Natasha?
Yes, John Condolences. The other question is, the other 2 questions, the dispute process. How many disputes does the ANC have you registered across the country? How big is the team manning them, and do you think that you'll be able to finalize all the disputes in the necessary time period? Second question is on Moody's and S&P. There's a potential ratings announcement on Friday. Have you met with them? Have you had any discussions with
Come again.
Moody's and S&P?
Oh.
Thank you.
I can't give you the exact number. They continue coming. Okay. It's a moving target. But what I'm heartened about is that teams are in the provinces, they're dealing with them on an ongoing basis. And therefore, the risk of them impeding progress to the conference are mitigated against. Every province, there's a team that is there. And they sit, take time, listen to those disputes, and give verdicts. And to me, that is quite helpful. And I can assure you, Natasha, that 16th to the 20th, you will be Nasrec in the conference of the ANC. I can assure you about that. Moody's and S&P, we have not met them this time. I read an article where people were saying they have not met us because they have made their mind. They have made their mind, they have made their mind. What else can we do? We don't want to meet them, to persuade them in what is a mind they have made. Now, when we meet them, we explain what is happening, how to manage things here. We are not managing to impress rating agencies. Rating agencies must be impressed by the work we do because it is necessary and correct for the country. Okay? We have not met them. You see, the problem with South Africans is that we are a very nosy country. Even if Moody's and S&P didn't want to downgrade us, I'm sure, Fred, they will have to downgrade us because all South Africans are saying we are going to be downgraded on Friday. You see, which is a big problem for South Africans because South Africans talk themselves down. And that's why they cannot acknowledge even progress they are making. We're waiting for the rating agency to make the announcement. We'll respond when they make those. Is that good?
Yeah, as you give us an update on education. then my second question is still on Zimbabwe. You say you've been taken aback by the removal of, graves, dressed into minorities in Angola. The fact that South Africa hosted in Angola, would you say that, follow up to a question raised by Steve, that South Africa, were you aware that there was a coup being planned from Zimbabwe? My question is whether South Africa was complicit to this. You hosted someone who was already not from Zimbabwe, who was alleged to be planning to kill him, who he said was pretending.
You see, you're using terms that are very strong to be real. I don't know if you know that when Didimas Mtasa ran from Zimbabwe, he came here. He was not hosted, he came and stayed somewhere. I would imagine that Mnangagwa is not a guest of the South African government or the guest of the ANC, he's in South Africa. Now, when you say we hosted him, I think it's an exaggeration that is very dangerous. Because you are saying we provided a refugee for a person who was actually planning to kill. Now, I don't know the plan to kill, that's the first thing. You know it. Mnangagwa said so, he wanted to kill. No. Mnangagwa was flown here, sick, treated in our hospitals. That's it. And number two, he gets removed and he runs to South Africa. That's why I refer you to Didimas. The disadvantage of being separated by a river with Zimbabwe is that it will be the first option of running to. I'm sure Grace has not run here because you may arrest him if she comes. You may arrest her if she comes. That is the only reason. Otherwise, the first obvious area to run to would be here. Then think from here, go wherever you want to settle. But Mnangagwa would come here, not because we wanted to host him because he was going to be killed. He runs here because we're the neighbor. So, I don't know if we're taken aback by the removal of Comrade Joyce, Didimas and the group that were removed in December last year in the conference of ZANU-PF. I don't know the taken aback that you're talking about. Now, taken aback and concern are two different things. Or okay. You see, if it can happen to our party, you find that a group of people who are senior enough in the party gets kicked out of the party in numbers, you will be concerned. Everybody will be concerned because it will show the health of the party. Okay? It will show the health of the party. Therefore, it becomes a concern. But we're saying it's built up from that period for a year, actually, almost, because Mjuru, Didimas, and the other group of veterans there were kicked out of the conference in December last year. You may have forgotten this. I'm keeping it. After a year, a number of them during the year were removed, then it came to Emerson. And everything broke loose. And I'm saying it's not just the Emerson, that is a trigger of a build-up of many of those veterans. Actually, if you watch them commenting on the process, you find out that there were quite a number of those veterans who came back to the space. It means there was a build-up for what happened. Okay. On the Eastern Cape, a team is in the Eastern Cape listening to the appeal. Any follow-up? Okay. Yes, Butch.
One follow-up on Zimbabwe.
No, I will follow up. Ask your question.
So the first question is, do you think that people last week protesting on the streets of Harare about cronyism and corruption, that will embolden one faction in the ANC that is campaigning a lot about corruption in the lead up to December? And the second question is, in December this year, what special measures is the ANC taking to prevent any irregularities, and which bits of the December conference will be open to the media?
What do you mean by open to the media?
Well, where we will be able to attend.
You want to sit throughout?
No.
What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? I want to know.
Well, so in the summer, yes, journalists weren't allowed to quite a lot of different bits of the conference. How is it going to be this year? Will it be only the first and last days? How do you know yet?
Do you want us to allow journalists to commissions?
No. I'm just interested. How do you plan it?
Let me start with the journalists. A journalist invited to the conference of the ANC, there will be open sessions. Beginning last, there may be others in the middle. For example, the nomination process, it will be open to journalists. But to allow the ANC to discuss, there will be closed sessions. And that's it. There will be regular briefings for journalists. And I would imagine that journalists will ambush delegates as well and get sources telling them certain things. But we'll open it at the beginning, at the end. We'll open it during the nominations. There will be regular briefings.
The announcement of results.
Yes, nomination, announcement of results, those areas will be open. But it will not open to journalists for commissions and discussions in Commission 1 to that. The organizational report is always closed. If it is open, it will not be candid. It will have to hold back and say, we're not happy with this, instead of saying this. This happened, it's bad for the ANC, this should be done differently. Now that is the essence of an organizational report. Do you have a follow-up on that?
No, the question was Zimbabwe.
Which one?
Is it emboldening the faction?
No, we're not emboldened by what happened in Zimbabwe because you will not have those players being players here. There will not be players here. We are in the ANC, we are having our own dynamics, we deal with them ourselves. Yema. Yema munna. Is that sis?
Talking about the race going to the elective conference, two states have emerged. We know that others are also contending. Has the ANC looked at the possibility of a split coming in there? Have they put contingency plans to deal with this? And my second question is, what's your take on business making a declaration that they support a specific slave overnight?
I don't know your two slates that you're talking about. Let me tell you why I give you that answer. It's because PGCs will open the nominations and announce nominations. Okay? At that point in time, I will say there are two slates. At this point in time, there are only 3 provinces that have announced. It's the Women's League, it's the Youth League, and the Northern Cape. No other province has announced. You must remember the leagues are treated as provinces in the conference of the ANC. So only those 3 provinces have announced. If you have an insight of slates, you are lucky, you are in a better position than me. I could see you doing analysis last week in the New Age, putting graphs and that, in New Age, the insider nyani. So, I won't talk of 2 slates at this point in time until we complete the process. Because anybody who is elected by a province will get into the ballot paper. That's what our Constitution says. Number 2, anybody who may surprise us, and I'm warning you, watch GM on that. GM 17 is hard at work. It's surprise everybody, get nominated from the floor and get support of 25% from the floor. It will demystify your notion of 2 slates. So, to me, I think we are putting the cart before the horse in this regard. I've not seen this declaration of business declaring support of a particular slate. I've not seen it. I've read many stories about different forms of business supporting that candidate, other business supporting that candidate. I've read about that. Now, I don't know if this declaration, maybe if you have, I would like to have that copy of that declaration. Any follow-up? No follow-up. And then you get Susan, please.
Thank you, Ashi. I'm just about to throw very practical questions about the conference. I believe you have said earlier that ANC will be finishing accreditation of delegates before the start of the conference. Is that still the plan, given that the timelines have been stretched out significantly? And do you anticipate that part of the preparations will go smoothly? Accreditation. About voting, on what day of the conference will the voting actually take place? In the past it has been on the second or on the 3rd day.
I think 2nd day for the top 6.
And will counting again be by a manual process?
Yes.
In the past we've heard that demand. And then will delegates be permitted, or will there be measures to ensure that they do not take photographs of their marked ballots? Because we know that has been a very big factor in the past. And the last one in this cluster, please. We also know that in the past, once delegates had finished their voting processes, they were wheeling their luggage trolleys up the road at Mangahoru on the campus there. Their task was finished and were going home. No interest in the policy debates and the commission's work. Are there any measures, do you think it should be appropriate to have measures to ensure that there is sustained interest in the ANC's policy debates, or would you say it's a right of delegates to pack their bags and go after voting? Thank you very much.
Let me tell you the process, because you don't seem to understand the process this year. What is happening is that in the branches, they nominate leadership, they nominate delegates. Okay. And those delegates are actually documented. What we say is a package in the box includes names of delegates. Okay. As they finish PGC of a particular province, already there will be a printout of the delegates branch by branch. Then we'll go to the provinces and have pre-registration. And that pre-registration will be counterposed to what came out of the nominations. So nominations themselves are beginning to develop accreditation. And then there will be measures taken there of, you are registered as a delegate, what should you do when you go to the final registration at conference? Basically at conference what you do is to collect your card. Registration will be done up front, it's happening already. And therefore, we don't think there will be a complication of accreditation because time limit. Every PGC will be used to register delegates. That is pre-registration, and that pre-registration will be counterposed to the names that came out of the PGC, BGMs, okay? So already we're having a data of delegates per branch as they come out of the branches in the box of nominations. It will be impacted if a dispute nullifies a branch, that nomination will be cancelled. If there is a rerun, what comes new will be the one that is recognized. Now, manual counting is better because it gives everybody satisfaction that they have seen the counting. It's not for technical people to count for us because it will cause a lot of dissatisfaction and unhappiness. I've been watching it in the elections in the continent. Everywhere they have opted for electronic counting, there are problems. Manual counting satisfies delegates because delegates will not just wake up and be IT inclined and affair. They will be there, they will send their observers to watch the counting and then happy when it comes out. We will not allow photographing of ballots, we will not allow photograph gadgets to go into the ballot station. Human beings are human beings, others are going to hide it in very secret areas and do it. But as a rule, it will not be allowed. On the elections versus policy, policy started in June. Policy discussion started in June. It's going on, it's continuing. It will go to the national conference, there will be commissions. Commissions will not be discussing elections, they will not be nominating, they will be discussing policy. That is what always gave us policy outcomes after conferences. It's actually commission reports, because that's where people spend time and discuss policies. And it has never happened that people run up and down the campus and not apply to policy issues, because commissions sit for days and people pay attention to that. If I don't understand policies, I'm a delegate and I came to conference only to hear the results of the election, there will be such delegates. But serious delegates sit in commissions and discuss policies. Okay. Thank you very much, Siyavala ngoku. Siyavala ngoku. You see?
Has there been a discussion
Now, you see, Bloomberg, you want us to discuss your analysis and not deal with the conference of the ANC. Every conference of the ANC, we elect the top 6 first, then elect the additional members, whatever number. Officials will be nominated and elected on the second day. Yes, on the second day. The difference this time around is that we'll run the elections of the top 6 individually. We'll elect a president, announce, a deputy president, announce, and so on and so on. That's the only difference this time around. Then the rest of the NEC is normally announced on the last day, because a long list, 60 or 80, depending on what is adopted in the constitutional amendments, is done on the last day. That's what it is. Somebody asked us earlier, you're asking that question differently, of whether the 2 slates, was asking me about 2 slates, have we planned for a split? If we plan for it, it is not a split, it is formation of a new party. So we're not planning to form a party out of the ANC. A split happens. The party doesn't plan for a split from itself. Okay? It's like asking a family, have you planned for a death? The family will tell you that no, we don't plan for death. We plan for life. That's what we plan for. And therefore, the question of the election, the 2 presidents, I don't know what will be new this time round. Huh?
You recalled the last president.
Come again?
You recalled the last president's.
Yes, but still there was another president who acted, not the president of the ANC. Huh? There's nothing new on that. There was another president who was not the president of the ANC, even the last time. So they always overlap 18 months. When you ask that question, I know that it's informed by suspicions and jitteriness and the jitterness that is around you. In our case, we have a conference, end of 2017, we go to elections in 2019, okay? And the beauty of that 18 months for us, I won't talk about what you imagine, is that the president who will lead and be the face of the ANC is elected in conference, and that president becomes the face of the ANC in the campaign. Okay? It's not the state president who is the face of the ANC, it is the president of the ANC who is the face of the election campaign. Okay. Ubuze 4 questions. How many now?
You said earlier on saying that Mr. Mugabe must be celebrated for the role the work that he's done.
Yes.
I wanted to get some clarity. You mentioned him being an activist and the role that he played as a liberation, someone who helped Zimbabwe in the liberation struggle.
He didn't help, he was
Are you
part.
including that, or are you including his time in office? Because I remember you mentioned, SG, that he's presided over, in fact, he destroyed the economy of Zimbabwe. So if you say he must be celebrated for the role he's played over the decades,
Can I?
excluding his
Let me plead with all of you. Ewanamos, sometimes now you set a very negative agenda. Don't draw us to that. Make it your agenda. Make it your agenda. Don't make it mine. My acknowledgement of Mugabe is that Mugabe was a commander of a liberation movement and a liberation army. ZANU-PF and ZANLA forces liberated Zimbabwe alongside ZAPU and Zebra forces. Okay. Whatever you write about Zimbabwe, about Mugabe, if you leave that part, I know that you're subjective. Okay. Okay. Zimbabwe was free for the first 10 years. It was one of the best performing liberation movements on development of Zimbabwe. Actually, up to today, in terms of the quality of education, I don't think it is equal. If you don't say that, I know that you are subjective. Then you can go to the mistakes committed. The first mistake, if you ask me, was taking the loan of the IMF in 1991. That's where the decline started. It started with that loan in 1991. Then you can do your analysis. Okay.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. I'm sure a number of you have made requests to us for just some engagement on the conference, and we are responding to those requests as they come. But we just want to make a plea. There will be no extensions for people who do not apply for media accreditation. The applications close this Friday. Please make sure that everybody who's supposed to apply from your teams has applied on the ANC website. But thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.
No, there's no extension.
Ni branch happening.
There's no extension to this branch.
Mop up.
You mop up, you want to be mopped up.